In the year of 2012, the Houston Rockets made one of the greatest trades in NBA history, and that was acquiring James Harden from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this was at a point in time where OKC felt like James Harden wasn't worth the contract that he was demanding. And obviously, the Houston Rockets, they felt the opposite way. They went ahead and made the trade, gave James Harden the contract he was looking for, and it instantly became one of the greatest decisions in NBA history. James Harden went from being sixth man of the year to one of the best players in all of the NBA, eventually going down as one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. And a lot of people consider James Harden to be the greatest ISO scorer in NBA history. And his tenure with the Houston Rockets was just spectacular. Had them at the top of the Western Conference, stayed healthy, deep playoff runs, and from the year 2012 up into 2020, his final year with the Houston Rockets, he got them into the playoffs every single season. So he is a Houston Rockets legend, NBA legend, but we all know what they say, all good things must come to an end. And in the 2020-2021 NBA season, James Harden did request a trade from the Houston Rockets. Tried to convince him to stay, wasn't convincing no James Harden at this particular point. He ended up forcing his way out of Houston, and in January of 2021, he was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. And at the time, losing somebody like James Harden, it sent the Houston Rockets into rebuilding mode. And when we talk about all that stuff we just talked about with the playoff success and how good James Harden is, I know it can be really tough as a franchise, as a fan base, as a front office, to go from that and then go to that rebuilding phase. And the Houston Rockets, they hit the rebuilding phase really fast. It wasn't no slowly becoming one of the weaker teams in the Western Conference. They instantly became one of the worst teams in the West, but not too much to frown about with the Houston Rockets, because I think those days are well behind them, because I think they absolutely did a great job with the rebuilding phase. And for me personally, when I look at a rebuilding phase, I think there's a few different points of emphasis that you should focus on as a franchise. Number one, and I think this is obvious, is finding the correct young talent in the NBA draft. And I think that's the best thing the Houston Rockets have done so far in their rebuilding process. I think you need a good leader in your head coach. We see how much of a difference it was when Steve Silas was running the show versus Ime Udoka. And then after that, you also need high quality NBA veterans. And I think the Houston Rockets, they've done a great job with all three of these things. And what I've seen off the last 3 or 4 years, I think we can finally say that the Houston Rockets are done rebuilding. And we're going to be breaking down this outstanding rebuild by the Houston Rockets, and we're going to be starting with the young talent that they've acquired so far through their rebuilding phase. And like we established earlier in the video, I think this has been the best part of the Houston Rockets rebuild, the young talent that they've been able to acquire. Now, what I love about their draft selection, I love that they've been able to find talent at the top of the draft, but also when they get outside of the draft lottery, later in the first round and in the later stages of the NBA draft, they've been able to draft players with high upside, and they've also been able to draft players that you can plug in and they can benefit you when it comes to winning games right now. And we look at that 2021 NBA draft, and this is the first NBA draft after trading James Harden. They go out and they replace their offensive engine with the number 2 overall pick in that year's draft, and they get Jalen Green. And then later in that same round, they have the 16th overall pick, and a lot of people call this a steal. I definitely consider it a steal, especially what I seen from Alperen Sengun last season. I just spoiled the draft pick, but the 16th overall pick in the 2021 draft turned out to be Alperen Sengun, who is an absolute stud, who's going to be a cornerstone for the Houston Rockets. He brings so much to the game of basketball, and after what we seen from him last season, him and Jalen Green, the sky is the limit for both of those guys. They have so much untapped potential. They're so young, and they're going to continue to get better and better. I see no reason for them not to get better. And then we fast forward to the 2022 NBA draft. It's kind of funny. 2021, they had the 2nd overall pick and the 16th overall pick, In 2022, they had the 3rd overall pick and the 17th overall pick. And with this draft, with their 3rd overall pick, they kind of went into a guy. They went with a guy that they thought could help impact winning right now and fit the scheme of things. He can plug in and play around other guys, and that was Jabari Smith Jr. And not only does he fit the scheme, but Jabari Smith Jr. is one of those players that also has a lot of upside as well. But coming in right off the bat in the NBA, he's going to be able to defend multiple positions, rebound the basketball, and knock down 3-point shots. And that's what we've seen him do so far in his NBA career. We go a little later in that round, and in my opinion, I think this is a big time steal because Tari Eason, you go back and look at a lot of mock drafts, Tari Eason was supposed to be a top 10 draft pick, but somehow he falls down to number 17 to the Houston Rockets, and he's another player that you can just plug him in. We've seen this. We just haven't seen Tari Eason be on the court consistently, but whenever he is on the court, he is making winning impact plays on the game of basketball, whether it's with his defense, whether it's with his rebounding. We've seen him take over games for the Houston Rockets and lead them to victory, leading the team in points. Tari Eason, he has a lot of potential, but he's also already a high-quality role player in today's NBA. So that's the 2022 NBA draft. We get to the 2023 NBA draft. Once again, 2 high-quality draft picks in the first round. This year they have the 4th overall pick, and they go with Amen Thompson, who's one of my favorite players on the team. I forgot to say that about Tari Eason. Tari Eason is also one of my favorite players, but so is Amen Thompson. He's a 6'7" point guard, supremely athletic, one of the most athletic players in the NBA, and he has a computer inside of his brain when it comes to understanding and processing the game of basketball. Another terrific draft pick by the Houston Rockets. We fast forward, and once again, you guys see the pattern in here. Another crazy steal by the Houston Rockets, and this one is one of the crazier steals. It's like how you let the Houston Rockets get this guy. But Cam Whitmore, he falls to number 20, and he was supposed to be a top 5, no lower than a top 6 pick. He got passed up on so many teams. And if you watch Cam Whitmore play last season, you could tell he was not too happy by that. He plays with a huge chip on his shoulder every time he dunks the ball. It reminds me of Russell Westbrook, how hard it's like he's angry at the rim, how hard he's punching the basketball each and every time. So they have Cam Whitmore with the 20th overall pick, and then we get to this most recent draft, and this was what put the icing on the cake for this Houston Rockets rebuild, because last season the Houston Rockets had somewhat of a successful season, and you can make an argument that if they didn't sustain the injuries to key players that they sustained, that they would have had a spot in the playoffs. And just to name some of those key players that sustained injuries, and these was all at different points in times. Fred VanVleet had to miss a significant amount of time. I believe when he went down, the Houston Rockets had a guaranteed spot in the playoffs, and they kind of struggled without him being out there. Cam Whitmore was in and out of the lineup. Tari Eason missed a huge chunk of the season, and so did Alperen Sengun. So last year, and despite all of that, they finished 41-41 and still had a chance to get into that 10th spot to have a shot in the play-in tournament. But nonetheless, it didn't work out, but still it showed the Houston Rockets what they were capable of. And in this season where they saw their glimmer of light, they still struggle with one thing, and that was 3-point shooting, and they addressed that in this year's NBA draft, getting Reed Sheppard with the 3rd overall pick out of the University of Kentucky. They got the best shooter in the country from the 2024 draft class at the University of Kentucky, over 50% from the field, over 50% from the 3-point line, and he's just a lights out 3-point shooter. He can shoot from deep, he can shoot off the dribble, he can shoot off the catch, he knows how to move without the basketball. He's another player that he's going to be able to come in, and the Houston Rockets are going to be able to plug him right in, and he's going to fit into the scheme very easily. And he also, after watching him in the summer league, he has a lot of upside to his game as well. We didn't see him too much on the ball at the University of Kentucky, but we saw it a lot in the summer league, and he seems like a very, very gifted playmaker, and he just showed a lot of high NBA guard quality. So Reed Shepherd was a great pickup, and so that's really the young nucleus that the Houston Rockets have right now. And just to name them again: Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, and Reed Shepherd. And we look at those other aspects we talked about: a great leader in the head coach. They have that, and Coach Ime Udoka, who coming off that 2021-2022 NBA season, had the season with the Boston Celtics where he reached the NBA Finals. We know he got into some trouble, and he ultimately ended up with the Houston Rockets, and he established some culture for a very young team. He established more ball movement, and then also something that's more evident is how good they were defensively last season in rebounding the basketball. The Houston Rockets were both they were top 10 in rebounding and defending, and that has something to do with Coach Ime Udoka. So I think he's going to continue to uplift this team and make these guys better. And then we look at the veterans on this team, high quality NBA veteran players. You got Fred VanVleet, who has won an NBA championship with the Toronto Raptors, who has made an all-star team. And they also have Dillon Brooks. Now, a lot of people don't like Dillon Brooks. A lot of you guys, and I'm with you guys on this too, I think Tari Eason will eventually become a starter and replace Dillon Brooks, but I think it's something that's going to have to be earned and taken away from Dillon Brooks because put aside all the antics, he is a really good NBA basketball player. He defends at a very high level, and he offers spacing on the offensive side of the ball, and that can get you minutes on any team in today's NBA. But I think that the minutes at the forward spot is definitely going to be ultra competitive. And then also they acquired Steven Adams last season. Steven Adams has been around the NBA for a very long time. He has been on deep playoff runs, and he has played intricate roles on those deep playoff runs. So having him as that backup center guy, having him as an enforcer, and having him in the locker room is going to be big time. And they have other guys like Jock Landale and also Jeff Green. So I think things are shaping up really well for the Houston Rockets. They had their young talent. They got some they played a lot of high-quality competitive games last season, games that's good for young teams. You want your young guys to go through those type of games. So next year, they'll be used to some of the situations that they weren't used to last season. So I can't wait for next season. I can't wait to watch the Houston Rockets. Can't wait to watch a bunch of other teams. But we've been talking about Houston so much this summer because they have so much going on. They have so much going on in H-Town right now. It's hard to not talk about them, but that's what I want to speak about with you guys today. I think we can officially say that their rebuilding phase is over. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the Western Conference next season. We're going to have to wait and see. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Leave a like and then subscribe. Subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man. And that's curtains. Oh my God.